Have you ever wondered how dictators rise to power and why ordinary people obey them? What happens when a revolution meant to create freedom creates an even worse dictatorship? What happens when the oppressed become the oppressors? If you observe the rise to power of dictators and tyrants throughout history, you will see one common pattern repeated every time. This pattern is universal and still exists in the modern world. History has seen it happen again and again and again. Almost every bloody revolution in human history begins with the exact same promise: freedom. People rise up against corruption, inequality, and abuse of power. They dream of justice, equality, freedom. But somewhere along the way, political power changes people. History is always written by the winners. History always sides with the dictators. The new leaders step into the empty vacuum of power. The leaders who once promised liberation begin controlling information, silencing critics, rewriting truth and history itself. They promise equality, but slowly the rules change. The new bosses start looking a lot like the old bosses. And slowly, the revolution dies. In 1945, George Orwell wrote a short, simple fairy tale about farm animals that perfectly cracked the code on exactly how dictatorships are born. This fairy tale is called Animal Farm. Nearly a century later, it is still the most terrifyingly accurate playbook on modern political manipulation ever written. On the surface, it looks like a simple story about animals on a farm. But underneath, it is one of the most powerful political warnings ever written. A story about revolution, propaganda, manipulation, and how dictators rise. Written by George Orwell in 1945, Animal Farm is not really about animals at all. It is a political allegory inspired by the rise of the Soviet Union after the Russian Revolution. But even today, the message still feels disturbingly relevant. Because the story is not just about one country. It is about power itself. The story begins at Manor Farm, owned by a cruel and irresponsible farmer named Mr. Jones. The animals are overworked, underfed, and miserable. One night, an old pig named Old Major gathers all the animals together. He tells them that humans exploit animals, steal the fruits of their labor, and keep them trapped in suffering. He inspires them with a dream, a society where animals govern themselves equally and freely. Soon after, Old Major dies. But his ideas spark a revolution. The animals rise up, drive Mr. Jones away, and rename the place Animal Farm. At first, everything seems hopeful. The animals work together. They create rules called the 7 Commandments. The animals write down 7 commandments on the barn wall to guide their new society. Rules like, no animal shall sleep in a bed, no animal shall drink alcohol, and the ultimate golden rule: all animals are equal. 2 pigs become the main leaders, Snowball and Napoleon. Snowball is intelligent, creative, and wants to improve the farm through planning and innovation. Napoleon is quiet, but power-hungry, intimidating pig who doesn't say much but always gets his way. But power behaves like a drug. Napoleon doesn't want to share it. He secretly raises a litter of ferocious puppies, initially taken away from their parents with a plea to educate them, but actually trains them into loyal attack dogs. During one of the meetings, he uses them to violently chase Snowball off the farm forever. From that moment, everything changes. Napoleon doesn't rule by force alone. He rules by rewriting reality. He uses a smooth-talking pig named Squealer as his propaganda minister. Whenever the animals notice things are getting worse, Squealer convinces them that their memories are just playing tricks on them. When the pigs move into the farmer's house and start sleeping in beds, the animals check the barn wall. The commandment now reads, no animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets. When the pigs execute animals suspected of treason, the rule changes to, no animal shall kill any other animal without cause. The working-class animals, like Boxer the loyal horse, just work harder and harder every day to fulfill the pig's wishes. But loyalty doesn't save him. When Boxer gets too old and weak to work, Napoleon doesn't give him a peaceful retirement. He sells him to a horse slaughterer to buy cash for a case of whiskey. The pigs force the hens to produce more eggs, explaining to them that this is for the good of the farm. They take more milk from the cows, without giving the due share to others. They do not work, but explain to the other animals that they are doing the hardest job by organizing the work and giving out orders. The animals starve without food, are cold in the weather, while the pigs enjoy a life of luxury, justified by squealer that this was for the prosperity of the farm. The farm becomes prosperous and rich, but the workload of the animals never decrease, and their food is reduced. By the end of the book, the original 7 commandments are wiped clean. In their place stands just one single, terrifying sentence. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Orwell explicitly wrote Animal Farm as a direct allegory for the 1917 Russian Revolution. The character of Mr. Jones represents Tsar Nicholas II. Old Major represents a revolutionary ideology, probably by Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin. Snowball was Leon Trotsky, the idealist thinker who was exiled. And Napoleon was Joseph Stalin, the brutal dictator who turned a communist utopia into a totalitarian police state. And the story closely mirrors the events that followed the Russian Revolution. The book shows how authoritarian systems survive through 3 powerful tools. The dictators control language and information by propaganda and rhetoric. Instead of fixing problems, they manipulate perception. If the people control information, freedom survives. If the government controls information, truth becomes fragile. This is why propaganda has been used throughout history, in dictatorships, wars, extremist movements, and even in modern politics. Dictators use fear to silence opposition. People become too afraid to question authority. And once fear dominates society, freedom disappears quietly. Not through one dramatic event, but slowly. Perhaps the most important message in the book is this: power can corrupt even those who once fought against corruption. The pigs originally wanted equality. But once they tasted power, they became exactly like the humans they hated. Orwell suggests that without accountability, transparency, and critical thinking, every revolution risks becoming another form of tyranny. Orwell's message goes beyond just one historical event. If Animal Farm was only about Soviet history, it wouldn't still be taught in schools today. The reason this book remains a masterpiece is because it predicts the exact life cycle of any corrupt political power. It tells the truth in the most devastating way and shows us how helpless we actually are. This story is a warning that true enemy was never the humans or the pigs. The true enemy was the political power itself. When the other animals realized this, it was already too late. Orwell shows us that totalitarianism doesn't just happen overnight. It happens in inches. It happens when a government slowly changes the definitions of words. It happens when the public stops questioning the narrative because they are too tired, too afraid, or too distracted. The final, haunting image of the book tracks this perfectly. The pigs start walking on 2 legs, carrying whips, and wearing clothes. The other animals look through the farmhouse window, looking from pig to man, and from man to pig, and realize they can no longer tell which is which. Orwell's ultimate warning isn't that revolutions are bad. It's that blind loyalty to any leader, no matter how heroic they seem at the start, is the fastest way to lose your freedom. What do you think is the most dangerous way leaders manipulate the public today? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into classic literature and history, and I'll see you in the next video.